Hello, my name is Jason Johnson, and thank you for watching this video. I hope my video series are helpful for you, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment below on the video, and I'll try to get you an answer or point you in the right direction. This lab is going to be, or this video is going to cover the 2234 Packet Tracer Configuring Initial Switch Settings lab. It is specifically for the NETACAD CCNA R&S, or Routing and Switching Course 1. And if you need any information about this, as far as the PDF file, the PKA file, any of those, you'll need to get with your instructor or with your course that you're taking. I cannot provide those for you. So, you can ask, but I won't be able to provide those for you. I'm just covering the video portion of it here. So let's get started. And we're going to, this is our topology here. We have two switches and two hosts, two desktops. And we're going to cover 5 objectives in this video. The part 1 is we're going to verify the default switch configuration. Part 2 is we're going to configure a basic switch configuration. And part 3, we're going to configure, and I'm having trouble here, there we go. We're going to configure a message of the day, or banner. And then part 4, we're going to save the configuration files to the NVRAM. And then part 5, we're going to configure our switch 2, or the S2 on here. So let's look at the background real quick. And it's just saying in this activity, we're going to perform basic switch configurations. You're going to secure access to command line interface and console ports using encrypted and plain text passwords. The banners are also used to warn unauthorized users to access, or that access is prohibited. And we'll talk about that when I get to that. So let's look at part 1 here. Verify the default switch configuration. Enter privileged exec mode. And we're not going to use a console cable. If we were doing this outside of Packet Tracer, we would set up a computer and we would connect a console cable, and we would do it that way. In Packet Tracer, what's really nice about the Packet Tracer software is it allows us to work in a virtual environment, and we don't need to do that every time. And so things boot faster, and we can connect easier through Packet Tracer. Although there is something to be said about having the actual equipment and working with that. And that's a whole nother video about a discussion of should you go out and buy equipment to prep for the certification. My view is if you're taking the NETACAD CCNA courses, the courses that go through and teach you, Packet Tracer should get you most of the way there. There are some instances where you might be better served by actually working with hands-on equipment, but you should be able to prep for the CCNA with just the Packet Tracer software and be okay with that, because you should see most of everything in here. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to click on the S1 switch, and then we're going to click on the CLI, or command line interface tab. So let's just go ahead and click on that. If you were going to use Packet Tracer, I'll just show you real quick. If we were going to do a console into it, we would just go here and add a end device. They've got this PKA file. We won't be able to do that here. But if we were building our own network, you'd be able to just put your own device in and connect your own console cable. But they've got this lab locked. So I'm going to move this just over to the right here so we can see. Actually, let me move it back this way. There we go. So I'm going to click on S1, and we've got our physical. We can see our switch. We can see the physical here. We can zoom in on it and see our different ports there. And let's go back to the original size, and let's go to our command line here. We can see our boot information for our switch. We can see that it's the version 12.2. And that's okay for purposes of what we're doing here. That's okay. We don't need the newer iOS on here. The 12 version will work for what we're doing here. And we're just going to go ahead and press enter. And we're going to get to our command line here. And it's just telling us that that's a switch. And so we're going to go ahead and enable we're going to access our privileged exec mode. And so we're just going to do that. And we can type enable. If you are learning the material for Cisco or learning this, you know that you can also do shortcuts. You can just type EN and press enter, and that'll get you in. You can also just type, let me see here. You can type just the EN. You can do EN question mark, and it'll show you that you have enable there. So you should be able, or you can do EN and tab, and it'll complete the command out for you. If it's ambiguous, it will not do that. So, but if it's unique, which means it's the only command that can go, then you can use the tab key to finish that. So if you see me using shortcuts on these, you're going to know that's what's happening. So instead of typing out enable, I just type the EN to get in there. And so now we are at our privileged exec mode, and we can tell that by our pound sign on here. We can see that that's a pound sign on there. And you may need to zoom the video in or pause the video to be able to see this a little bit better. I've changed my icons. I've tried to change everything a little bit larger here, but you can zoom in on it on there. So now we've you notice we've changed the prompt to a pound sign, and that lets us know that we are in a different mode. And if you've used Linux operating system before, you know that that's a similar theme in the Linux operating system, that you can tell where you are or what access you have based upon the command prompt that you have. So let's look at step 2. We need to examine the current switch configuration. So we're going to enter the show run. So we're just going to go back over here and we're going to do show. And I can just do type SH and type my tab key, and it's going to tell me that that's a unique command. Or I can type SH ? And that lets me know that show is the only command. So I can just do show run. If I type RU and type ? That's going to show me the running configuration there. So I should be able to just do SH space RU, because you should be able to shortcut a lot of these commands. So we're going to do SH RU. And I think you can just do SHR, but I go ahead and I just have it. And it's going to let me know, it's going to go to the first page here, and it lets me know that I've got interface 01, 02, 03. If I press my enter key, it's going to go one line at a time. If I press my space key, it's going to do it a page at a time. So if I just go ahead and do that, and then now I've got, let me go to show you here. So I've got my different interfaces, 23, 24. My gigabit Ethernets here, I've got 2 of those. 1 and 2. I'm showing that I've got a VLAN 1. I've got no IP address set on it, and it's shut down, so it's not working. My console line there, my VTY lines, 0 through 4, and then 5 through 15, and then there's the end. And so I'm back at my command prompt. So the question being asked here in our lab, and that's what you need to fill in, is how many fast Ethernet interfaces do you have? So you need to count those up. And then how many gigabit how many gigabit Ethernet interfaces does the switch have? And then what is the range of values for the VTY lines? You can look right there and see the VTY lines. And then which command will display the current contents of the non-volatile random access memory? So you need to put in the command which will display the current contents of non-volatile random access memory. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to point you in the right direction for that question. It's asking us, the question is, which command will display the current contents of non-volatile random access memory? I'm going to point you in the right direction on that. I'm not going to give you the full command, but check out show. You know you're going to use the show command. And then startup. Start with startup if you look that up, but you should look for startup. Now, if we type that in, if we typed in our command for that, it's not going to give that information to us. It's going to say it's not present because we've not saved our running config to our startup file, our startup config file. Okay, so that's what you're going to answer on that one. And then why does the switch respond with startup config is not present? So that also tells you what that command is there. So that gives you a hint. Well, let's look at part 2, creating a basic switch configuration. So we're going to assign a name to the switch because you don't want it just hanging out there with a switch name. We want to put names on those. And when we are creating our logical, our network, we do put names on switches and routers and our intermediary devices. And that's so that we know where they're located. Just looking at the switch name, it helps us track those devices. So we're already in the enable. We're already in privileged exec mode here because we did that when we did our enable. So we're not going to back out and redo that. It's just going to assume that we're already there. So we're going to assign a name to the switch. So we're just going to type config terminal. So we're in our config now. And you can see we're in config because if you notice here, we are now... Before we were at this prompt right there, just the name of the switch and the pound sign. Now we are right here. We're at our name, we're at the config and pound sign. So from a visual standpoint, that lets us know where we're located in the structure of the operating system. So we're going to go ahead and do, we did configure terminal. We're going to do line console 0. And now you can see that's changed again. Now it says config line. And we're going to put a password on here. And this one is, we're just going to type let me in. And you need to be careful, because if we are putting passwords in here and you're in a place where somebody can shoulder surf you and stand behind you and see your passwords, you want to be careful about that, because this does go across, when you type it in, it does show. So you just want to be careful about that. But we're going to type in let me in. You also want to make sure that you're typing in the passwords correctly, because it doesn't ask you to confirm your password. You don't put it in twice. So you just want to type it in one time. You want to make sure that what you're doing, and there's this gets into the realm of security. I can tell you that I do use a program, either KeePass or LastPass, to track my passwords, and I keep my KeePass I keep offline, either on a couple of USB drives that I keep physically in a safe, or you can put them somewhere where you're going to have them encrypted. But some type of password tracker is almost necessary, because otherwise you're going to have to write them down for long passwords, because you're just not going to remember a good password, and you don't want to use the same ones across all of your routers and switches, because if they get into one and it's the same password across all your devices, then they've got access to all of them. So with that said, this is an easy password to remember, so just keep security in mind. So we're going to type in the password of let me in. We're going to turn in the login, so we're going to make sure it's going to log in. We're going to type exit. We're going to type exit again. And the question that you need to answer now is, why is the login command required? And so you want to answer that question of why the login command is required. And if you read your material in the NETACAD course, you'll know that by turning on the login, that prompts the login. Otherwise, you won't be able to access the switch or the router. In this case, a switch. So step 3, we're going to verify that the console access is secured. So you want to verify that. So we're going to go ahead and we are at the privileged exec mode. We're going to go ahead and type exit and get all the way out. And so we're now going to try to get into the switch again. And sure enough, it's turned to the login and it wants to put the password in. So we're going to type in the let me in password. And now I'm back at the main login here, and I can go back into or I'm in user exec mode, excuse me. We're going to go into privileged exec mode so we can go enable. There we go. But that's our verified. We verified that we can get in. If it did not prompt you for a password, then you did not configure the login parameter, so you need to go back and do that. But that's just a step that should, what I call muscle memory. That's just one of these things as far as when you're setting up a new switch or a router or an intermediary device. These are some of the commands that you just need to know. Just as a side note, you need to know how to go in and set the host name, which I didn't do that, by the way. I did skip down, so I apologize. We'll skip back up to step 1 here, and then set the passwords. So let's these are commands that you just need to know, and I apologize. I did skip step 1 there. So step 1, let's go configure our host name. So we're going to config terminal, and we're going to type in host name S1, and then we're going to exit. And now you see. You'll see on here that my name is S1 on here. So I apologize. I got out of order there, but I'm not going to redo my video just because of that. Okay, so I'm at my S1, and we configured our terminal. We know our login's already set. And now we're going to do step 3. We're going to verify that the console access is secured. We did that. And then step 4, we're going to secure the excuse me, let me re-say that. We're going to secure the privileged mode access. I wanted to say privileged access, but we're going to secure the privileged mode access. So we're going to set the enable password to C1 $C0. And so what we're going to do is we're going to type in enable. So we did that. We're already at the privileged exec mode. We're going to type configure terminal. We're going to go in here. We're going to enable password. Nope, I'm not ambiguous yet. See, enable. There we go. See, if you notice there for en, see I had 2 ENs. I had enable and end key, so I couldn't just type en. So I have to type ENA, password, and we're going to set that to C1 $C0. And now that password, and then we type exit. Now we don't have to do login on this one because we're already, for the console, we have to type the login command. For here, we don't, because we're already logging in and creating that password at the console command. And then to go into privileged exec mode, we've set our password. So we typed exit there. And so now we're going to verify that the privileged access mode is secure. Let me say that again. I apologize. Verify that the privileged mode access is secure. Man, I cannot talk today. We're going to verify that the privileged mode access is secure. So we're going to exit out of the system, and we're back at the main screen. Now here's where we have to type in the let me in, because that's our console password. Now we're here. Now we're going to type enable. And when we type enable now, we get prompted for a password because we've set a password on our switch. And so we're going to type in our $, C1 $C0. Now, if you notice here, now at this point, no one can shoulder surf us and see our password. And it doesn't show the length or anything like that, which is nice. But it's just when you're typing in initially, you need to be careful about that. So now we've got that set. We're going to type our show run. And that's going to do that. And we can go down page at a time or line at a time. And if we scroll back up, notice here too that our passwords are in plain text. I can see my password right there, which is not good if somebody's looking over my shoulder on that. So we're gonna show you how to secure that. So and if you go back up here, you can see the password here. See, you see the password there, and you can see the password there. So what we need to do is we need to encrypt those or turn those where those aren't showing. So let's go on down here to step 6 and do that. So we're going to go ahead and configure the terminal. CONFT. Configure the terminal, and we're going to enable secret, and then we're going to put a password and call it's a secret. It's a secret. Did I type that right? It's a secret. Yes. So we typed a secret. We're going to type exit. So we're going to enable the secret password. That overrides the enable password. So if both of them are configured on the switch, you must enter the enable secret password to enter privileged exec mode. We have to do the secret. So that's the one. It's a secret. So we're going to verify that the enable secret password is added to the configuration file. So now we're going to come back here. We're going to do our show run command again. And now, if you notice, our enable secret is encrypted. It's not showing up where it did before. If we scroll back up here, let's see here. See if I can see it from back up here. No, it won't. Yeah, there we go. See, there's my. Nope. Here we go. See, it was showing before. And now, oh, the enable password is still not encrypted. We'll turn that on later. But that one is now our enable secret password on there. The let me in is still showing. So what is displayed for the enable secret password? You need to type that in. And why is the enable secret password displayed differently from what we configured? And so you'll just need to answer that question. It's because we've automatically encrypted that, really, but you'll need to come up with that in your own words for your answer. Now, step 8, we're going to encrypt the enable and console passwords so that if somebody was looking at the configuration file, they wouldn't be able to get those. So we're going to do config T. I'm going to configure our terminal. We're going to type in service password encryption. So we're turning in our password encryption on. That's the service. And then we're going to type exit. And now if we do our show run again, we'll notice now that now my enable password is encrypted. And if we come down here, and now my console password is encrypted. So now I've got some extra layers of security there for me. And so you need to answer the question, if you configure any more passwords on the switch, will they be displayed in the configuration file as plain text or encrypted form? And you need to answer that question, and mainly as anything from there, because you've already turned the encryption service on. That's your hint on that part there. So let's take a look at the part 3 here, configuring a message of the day banner. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do our config T, configure our terminal. We're going to type in our banner. And so we type in banner MOTD, message of the day. And a note about putting in message of the day here, we use our quotes here. We use our quotes here to enclose our message of the day. If you use quotes in here, like if I put quotes right there, only this part to this part would be displayed. So the system, the operating system reads the quotes as our beginning point and our end point. So you want to keep that in mind when you're writing your message of the day on there. And you're probably going to need to check with if you're doing this in a business environment or a work environment, you want to check with your HR, you want to check with your security person on what message you want on there. We're going to do a very simple one, and we're just going to say this is a secure system and unauthorized, if I can spell right, unauthorized access only. Authorized access only. We're going to type enter, we're going to type exit, and let's go ahead and just check out our banner. So it's not displayed yet. So the question is, when will the banner be displayed? And I'm going to show you here. And there you go. So if you notice here, our banner got displayed when I logged back in at the main login, and then my console is wanting a password. And you need to answer the question is, why should every switch and router in this case have a message of the day? And you want to answer that question. I'm just going to give you a quick hint on there. It's because you want to let everyone know that that switch or that router or that intermediary device is restricted, that only authorized users should be in there. Because if you don't have that, there's some legal, and I'm not going to get into it in this video, but there's legal reasons why you want to have a restricted only or authorized users only on there. So let's look at part 4, save configuration files to the NVRAM. So we're going to verify that the configuration is accurate using the show run command. So let's log in here, and my password of, what was my console password again? Yeah, that was my console was the let me in. So I'm in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to, we can do our show run again. Or no, we need to enable. And it's secret. There we go. And if we do our show run, remember we're looking at our commands there. And now what we want to do is we want to copy our configuration file to our startup configuration file. And the reason you do that is because if you reset your switch, if you turn the power off and turn it back on, it's only in your volatile memory at this point, the running configuration. So you need to copy that information over to your startup configuration. So if you reboot your switch, lose power, something like that, and it boots back up, you're going to have the correct configuration file. Otherwise, it's going to revert back to whatever was there originally. In this case, we don't have anything on our startup config. So we're going to copy our run to our startup, and I'm shortcutting this. Copy run to startup. And of course, I shortcutted that. And then it's going to ask me, is that the correct destination file name? I'm going to press enter as the default, and it's going to say OK. And that's the shortest we can probably do on the question it's answering there is copy run. I usually do copy run to start, just because in my mind that lets me know what I'm doing there. See, so that's I'm copying the running config to the startup config. But the nice thing is I don't have to type the whole thing out here. So I've got that. And now we need to, which command will display the contents of the NVRAM? We've looked at our show run file, but now how do we look at our config file? And we looked at that earlier, but if we type our show startup config file, now we're looking at the exact same copy as the current running file, and the startup are the exact same copy because we copied from the running to the startup. And if you look down at all the changes, they should have been entered in there. And now we're going to configure S2 real quick. So we're just going to go ahead and close this switch down, and we're going to configure the S2 switch. So what you want to do is you want to name, we're going to go through these exact same steps on the switch 2. You're going to come into your command line, and we're going to set our name first. So we're going to name our device. So we're going to enable on here. We're going to set our host name to be S2. I'm going to redo that there. We're going to, we're in our enable, and we're going to config T, and we're going to set our host name, and we're going to set that as S2. So now you can see my change there. And the next one is we're going to protect access mode of the console using the let me in password. So you're going to configure your configuration file or your console file. And if you're not sure how to do those, if you don't, this is where we come in with the muscle memory, or what I talk about, just memorizing these. I would also recommend maybe writing these down, handwriting these down at first until you get used to using them, and you're going to just memorize them over time as you keep doing them. But if you're not sure, just go back up to the top up here where it says, you're putting in your information again, securing the console line. Just go back up there again, and it should, it'll walk you through again until you start memorizing these. But you do need to memorize these basic ones on here. And like I said, you're probably gonna, if you don't use these on a daily basis, you might forget them. So you might have to refresh yourself before an exam. But we're just gonna do, we're in configure terminal. So we're just gonna go ahead and type in our line console. Now the great thing is on this is we don't have to back out and verify all these at the exact same time. You can put these in and type this in. You're going to type your login and exit out of that line there. And then you're going to then, you don't have to verify it. It's good to verify it. Best practice is you probably want to verify it, but just in this case of this lab here, I'm not going to verify it. So we're going to set our password to enable password to C1 $. So we're going to set the same password, even though security-wise that's not best practice. But we're in the lab setting, so we're okay. And then you're going to come down and what's the rest of our lab that it told us to do on step 8 here? We need to go ahead and enable secret password. It's a secret, and then configure a message logging into the switch, and then encrypt all plain text passwords and ensure all the configuration is correct. Save the configuration file to avoid its loss. So I'm not going to go through the lab here. You can go back through the other parts of the lab or refresh your memory by, you're essentially going to do on switch 2 the same thing you did on switch 1. So you're going to configure your term. You're going to put your console password. You're going to set your secret pass, your enable password here. You're going to set your secret password here, secret. Then you're going to turn on the service password encryption. Then you're going to set your banner to what it's telling you down below to do on there. And then you're going to copy your run file to your startup file. And that should be it. And then I'm going to go ahead and check mine here. If you check, if you open up the other file here, the activity file here, you can check to see if it's correct. So you can check your results. And if I do my assessment here, see, I did not do those last ones down there, but everything else that I did do. So on switch 2, I didn't enable my password, my name of my secret service, and do all that. So you would need to do that to get your correct score. Okay, so this was the overview for Packet Tracer 2234, configuring initial switch settings. Again, if you have any questions, my name is Jason Johnson. You can leave comments in the or leave your questions in the comments below. Thank you for subscribing to my channel, and I appreciate you watching my videos.